welcome back to Laurence McKenna on LFC channel. After Liverpool got a record away win against Brentford 4-1. It's a pretty good result, and it's also a better result than Man City got away from home at Brentford. And it's also a result that takes Liverpool back to the top of the league. There are plenty of things to talk about in this game, but if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, don't feel like you have to right now. If you enjoy the video, do it at the end of the video. Same goes for the Patreon that we've got. If you want to support the Liverpool work, but also the other video work we're doing around here, we've just started a new vlog series. We're doing all sorts of things in terms of analysis. And there is a podcast, there are loads of other things, and there's also a Discord involved. If you're on the Patreon, then get involved over there and come watch the games with us, come do all sorts of things. You're more than welcome. Let's talk a little bit about this Liverpool game, which felt like maybe 3 games in one, or 3 phases within one game. And I'm not talking about acts here where it's like, hey, this is super creative. I'm talking about different ways that Liverpool played within the 90, but also with the 100 and however many minutes that Jurgen Klopp deliberately tried to make them play. The first 15 minutes I thought was actually a little bit tricky. Liverpool were trying to find their way into the game, but they weathered the storm against Brentford, and it was a tricky storm to weather because obviously Alisson was out, Kelleher came in. He's had some decent performances recently actually when he has come in, and obviously in the Cup he's been pretty decent, but there are still a lot of people who obviously would prefer Alisson. Alisson's the best goalkeeper in the world, so I'm not going to argue with him there, but you get my point here. Like, when you don't have your first choice goalkeeper, there's always a worry in the Premier League. Then, of course, no Trent. Trent has re-aggravated another injury, so Conor Bradley comes back in. Difficult to re-bed him into the team at this point, or you'd have thought so, right? After losing his father, and obviously, again, our thoughts go out to the family. But I think what he's done really well is make that position his own. He's not trying to be Trent. He's not trying to do the Trent-like things. In fact, a lot of the crossing that Trent does is something now that other players would do out on the field, or Liverpool refrain from crossing in the first place on that side, and Andy Robertson is the mirror. But I thought Conor Bradley was fantastic in this game. And I think he's also a really good right-back in terms of defensive side as well as attacking. Then, obviously, Konate, Virgil van Dijk. They were always going to be having a tricky time going up against Mopé. I actually really enjoyed the battle between Mopé and Konate today. I think Konate rode it quite well. I actually don't think he was one of the weak links in that back line. And I actually thought Virgil van Dijk dealt pretty well with just managing the space, stopping the chances coming through for Brentford. And I know that Brentford caused some real issues for Liverpool. There were a couple of times where I think Brentford could have had at least 1 penalty in this game. Probably Robertson going through the back of Tony. But overall, you always felt like Liverpool were in the ascendancy. And I don't even mean that just in case of possession and shots and all those kind of things. Every time that Brentford turned over the ball, Liverpool were right on them. They were hunting them in threes, multiple different presses, triggering all the way along the front line. And even though Liverpool were rotating players out or having to sub people in, it still looked as if they always had a very, I'd say they had a stranglehold on the game, I think. Anyway, we will come back to that in just a second. Anyway, Liverpool make it through that first 15, ease their way into the game, and I felt like after a while Brentford opened up a little bit, and that's kind of one caveat that I want to put on this game at this point. Brentford weren't particularly good in this match. In fact, it's probably one of the least positive Brentford performances that I've seen in recent weeks, in fact, in even recent months. And I know there are a lot of people talking about the fact that Brentford could go down if things don't go the right way for them, and I totally get that. They've got a tricky run of games. It is really challenging. I think I saw on James Lawrence Alcott's video the other day, they have one of the most challenging runs of games. But that doesn't, I think for that reason, Thomas Frank probably isn't prioritising these games and is thinking, what games are realistic to win? Which games do we, try to get the most points from? Which games do we almost hold off a little bit, see if we can test our luck? And if Liverpool go and run rampant 4-1, that's something I can ease the blow of. I think that was more of that kind of vibe, at least around Brentford. I know every big team wants to be successful, and Brentford are a big enough team, they're in the Premier League, but you get my point. Midfield, I actually felt like Brentford would put in a lot of weird tackles. And I know Liverpool also have got a bit of a thing for weird tackles sometimes, like Andy Robertson, a couple of people going through people. McAllister was imposing himself. But actually, the only person I felt was inconsistent in recent weeks was actually McAllister, just because he was being asked to play multiple different positions, probably the hardest position on the team. And now we've kind of shifted him towards one of those 8s, though actually Liverpool kind of operate like a triple pivot. I don't know a better phrase for it. They're constantly rotating the 2 players who are sitting most deep and allowing someone else to get forward into the more like 10 position, be that McAllister or Jones. And then even Endo steps out into there sometimes. Even you'll see in the centre of the park, Conor Bradley coming through and just pushing through, absolutely like railing through the middle of that Brentford side. It's kind of weird to watch, and it shows, again, the hard work that went in last season into this season. But none of that really scored the goal, the first goal for Liverpool that opened the game right up. It was a combination of Nunez and Jota, actually almost operating like a classic front two, though actually the other way around, because Jota is the small guy. Liverpool on the counter-attack, which is so often a big danger point for Liverpool. Jota tracks the ball coming out the air, and the first time header over his shoulder to Nunez. Nunez goes through, and it's a perfect chip. And I'm talking like a perfect chip. One where I know there's all these tweets that are going around like, don't miss it, whatever. It was a brilliant finish from Darwin Nunez. And it opened up the game for Liverpool. Suddenly Brentford had to come into it. They hadn't scored the first goal. They couldn't sort of sit back. They couldn't pressure Liverpool a little bit more. The dynamic had changed a little bit. And really, it changed the game. I know Brentford had opportunities before that. Kelleher and a couple of other people keeping the ball away pretty well, actually, for Liverpool. But it's things like that where you're just like, wow, that's why you pay for a striker like that. It's not about just finishing ability. It's about confidence, the ability to just keep going back. He was all along the front line. Jota was always dropping deep. The reading of the game from Liverpool's front line at the moment allows them to rotate and move around almost as they wish. Diaz pops up in the middle. He pops up on the left. Jota's popping up deep. He's popping up beyond Darwin Nunez. Nunez is popping up deep. He's popping out on the left. Then you've got Diaz. The rotation amongst this front line and the way that the midfield adapts in like a Jones, or you see often actually weirdly, Liverpool aren't just looking up and just passing to a position anymore. They're deliberately looking at the way that the front line is oriented and going, right, where is the ball going to him, to him, to him? There was a point where a very simple Conor Bradley pass was on at one point. And I think the same for McAllister and the same for Endo. And it was like, cool, play through the lines. And they didn't. They were looking around. They're going, okay, we're not just going to go as fast as we can through the lines here. We'll rotate it around and see what we can get to. And I think it shows like the positionism of Liverpool before versus the way that they play now. It's always been thoughtful. It has always been intelligent. But this was a thoughtful, intelligent game in which Liverpool just controlled the flow of the ball so often within there. And I think a lot of that is also down to the fact their midfield in Jones, brilliant technical player who can bring it forward. McAllister, brilliant technical player who can bring it forward. Endo, brilliant technical player who can bring it forward. Some of them have quite a large turning circle. Some of them can look quite static sometimes, but broadly their read of the game means they don't have to be that kind of front foot player in these kind of games. I think that's, again, I'll go back to the same point. Brentford kind of allowed Liverpool to win this one. And I'm not saying like they rolled over and let Liverpool just rail. I felt like it was a weird one though, where I thought, this isn't the game that I'm kind of worried about when we're 2-0 up. It's the game where it's like, hey, what do you do in the big games? How mobile are we in the midfield? We got overrun by Arsenal in that with their box and everything else in the midfield, the overloading from out wide, Kai Havertz dropping deep. Brentford just weren't doing that. And I know they play a front two and there's like combinations and like clusters of play, but it's not the same as against Arsenal. We've got a couple of those games coming up. Chelsea are going to be a challenging one. I know there's going to be some people in the comments. There's City games to come. There's so many big games to come where it's like, right, how are we actually going to dominate another team and not just be allowed to dominate? Endo's a big part of that. Endo, in my humble opinion, if Jota hadn't have gone off, he would have been man of the match. But Endo therefore gets it purely because I think of the control that he allows Liverpool in the game. You saw Klopp like slap him and hug him as he came off. Like, you see what he brings to this side. I remember when he first came in from the Bundesliga and people were saying, he's going to put in lots of man of the match performances. I thought, there are so many stars in this side. For you to put in man of the match performances is going to be next level for Endo. But he has done that. He has put in incredible displays of reading the game, breaking it up. I know there are times where people get frustrated with his touch or, I don't even think his passing ability is that bad actually, but sometimes passes are quite slow. It's great to watch because I think early on there are a lot, including me, a lot of people saying, I wouldn't have had him as my first choice defensive midfielder. Of course, there would always be someone who's above everyone. Like, up until you get to Tchouaméni, you're kind of always going, well, there's always someone above. And Liverpool are always going to wish for the best. But I think what Liverpool are doing at the moment, what I really am impressed with is Klopp's ability to get the maximum out of a midfield like this, where someone like Endo would have been perceived in any other Premier League team as a weakness. And he's become a strength for Liverpool. His tackling, his shadow use across players, just cutting out passes, stopping passing lanes. All these things are things that the modern play needs to be really good at. He's captain of Japan for a reason. He was used as a real defensive stopper / third centre-back a lot for Stuttgart. And now that he's coming into that role for Liverpool, drops deep a little bit more, allows others to drop deep. Him defending very high up the field is also really effective. So he's a great presser in that sense, but not in the way that we remember, say, a Hendo to be or a Thiago to be. He has this ability to harry and press the opposition. And without Szoboszlai in there, without Curtis Jones in the second half after he went off injured, you need someone like that to basically just scare the opposition and control the midfield. And I really enjoyed that. Let's get on to that then. Jota went off, leg injury. I've got to admit, I did feel like Brentford were kind of falling on Jota and trying to just injure him. I don't think it was a deliberate thing. I think that's a little bit too conspiracy theory to say. But the way he fell on him felt like he kind of put his weight down. You can press back. When you fall, you push into it. Make your leg as hard as possible or fall on something and then cushion the fall. It looked like it felt that way and he really did it on Jota's knee. It felt quite malicious when I looked at it, but that's just in slow-mo. And then the Curtis Jones one, similarly, just so unneeded. I don't understand how this happens. I don't understand why. I understand it, but I don't understand why it's okay. The referee really didn't have much control on the whole game. He allowed a lot of penalties to just slide. Liverpool were allowed to put in feet. Brentford were allowed to put in feet. It's not the kind of game you really want to see if you're trying to put in a title charge, because you don't want players to get injured. You don't want players to be hobbling off. Jota was limping through the corridors of Brentford on all the spy cams that TNT seemed to have. And it's worrying to see. Salah came on and was fantastic. Don't get me wrong, another man of the match performance from him. Facilitator number one in the centre, out wide, on the inside left. He's always an option, and Connor Bradley allows him to do that. All the other players who go out right, and allow him to come on the inside right channel. It's great, but I want to be able to rotate my front line. Cody Gakpo coming in for Nunez, maybe we're saving him, maybe we're keeping our powder dry, maybe also when Salah's on, we think Gakpo is a good foil for him, and I also think that's kind of smart. Sometimes you want to rotate things, change things up a little bit. I actually thought Gakpo was really great in the second half. Again, and I think this is a really good stat, so I'm going to read this one, right? Let me find it. Cody Gakpo is the fourth player to score 10 plus goals for Liverpool this season, after Salah, Jota, and Nunez. One's on 19, one's on 14, one's on 13. It's in Liverpool's 38th game. It's the earliest into the season that Liverpool have 4 players on 10 goals since 1980-81, when that team, by the way, was amazing. So it's McDermott, Souness, Dalglish, and Johnson scoring those goals. Those are some iconic names for Liverpool. It's very similar here. You've got some iconic players in there, and you've got some players on the come-up, young guys who are trying to make a name for themselves. Nunez, really appreciated him, and I want to go back and go through some of these goals. Really enjoyed Gakpo's goal. I always enjoy Gakpo's goal. I just think he's one of those players. I love watching him for Liverpool, and it kind of took the air out of the Brentford sails. Kelleher made a really, in about 10 minutes, about 2 or 3 really great saves, really strong hands. It wasn't like it hit his body, it was low. Sure, it was in a good position for a goalkeeper, but his hands, arms were strong. Liverpool were 3-0 up, and Brentford were looking to come back into it. I felt bad for him, really, because he made a really great initial save, and he just pushed it to Tony, and Tony put it away. Salah, good finish. Not long, by the way, after he missed another one, and the same for the McAllister goal as well. Salah turns provider, McAllister great finish, just the toe poke past him. That's that number 10 position I'm talking about for Liverpool. That's that, hey, you can push into here, we've got someone who's going to drop a little bit deeper, loads of space evacuates, you run in and bam, there's a goal. Liverpool are really effective in that, and they've become really effective in baiting oppositions into setting traps or taking the bait from Liverpool or just moving out in certain positions. Liverpool are getting really good at manipulating the opposition, and it almost seems at will at this point. Score 4 goals in this game. City only scored 3. Jermaine Genius on commentary said something like, it's not enough. I get Liverpool need to have a bigger goal difference, but the goal difference really isn't all that different to Man City's at the moment. In fact, it's better than Man City's at the moment. Obviously, they've played 2 more games, so we'll see where City are after that. They've got Chelsea to play today, and you'd imagine that City will annihilate Chelsea. But at the same time, it's still a really good performance from Liverpool, really solid. I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments below. Who was particularly good? I enjoyed Bradley. It's good to see Robertson back. I really enjoy watching him maraud down that wing. I really enjoy watching him put in those tackles. I think he should have given away a penalty today. I think there are times where I kind of almost enjoy Liverpool locking it down a bit more with a Joe Gomez or someone like that, but that's not always possible. And of course, you want to keep Joe Gomez in a rotation. But at this point, I'm most worried about Luton midweek. What team do you start? Because they've got the cup final on the weekend. you still want to keep going. You still want to keep going forward. You still want Liverpool to do well at Anfield. It is an Anfield game, so thank God it's not Luton away. But the thing is, with playing Chelsea on the weekend and having that first cup final, I think Klopp's going to be mindful of that. But at the same time, he almost seems to sometimes want to push his players into those type of positions and sort of go on then, prove that you can just play a full season. We pushed 64 games the previous season before this. If Klopp's going to get everything out of them, keep running this team. But the worry is that we've run this team into the ground at this point. Trent, Alisson, I mean, I've got so many names in there, right? Thiago, Bajcetic coming back, but you get my point. Now Jones, now Jota. Those both don't look like stress injury. They look more like kind of impact injuries rather than sort of stress or long-term wear and tear, but still is what it is. Frustrating to watch, to be quite honest, but what are we going to do? Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. We'll do a full review later in the weekend on the channel. Obviously, there's lots more to come on this channel as well, so if you haven't already hit subscribe, please do it. If you're not part of the Patreon, you're more than welcome to join it and therefore get in the Discord. And if you're not already in the Discord, I will see you in there. Much love, guys. See you later. Bye. I don't know what that was. I really don't know what that was.